All right, so I spent about 25 minutes and I collected about 4.5, 5 quarts of dandelion heads. When I was collecting it, I made sure to get rid of pieces of grass like right there. Come on, get out of there. And then any stalks and stuff that was attached to it, so I got rid of that. My water is almost at a rolling boil. Once it boils more, a little, maybe a few more minutes, I'm gonna dump that into that, and then I'm gonna cover it with this t-shirt. I'm gonna sacrifice a really thin t-shirt that I have and use that as cheesecloth. So, and then we're gonna stir it for 3 days, and on the 4th day, we're gonna do some more stuff to it. So, wish me luck. All right, so I just poured 5 quarts of boiling water over the dandelion heads, and they all kind of wilted and closed up a little bit. So you can see the steam coming off. So now I'm going to cover it and let it sit, and I'll stir it every day. All right, so we're on day 4. I've stirred this for 3 days straight. I put the rubber bands on to keep the cloth from falling in there. So I can take that off. So I'm going to take the dandelions, which have been soaking in basically purified water because I boiled it, and I'm going to strain it into this. That's the pot that I boiled the water in. I'm going to strain the dandelion heads through that, and then I'm going to bring it up to a low simmer for about an hour, and during that time I'm going to add 3 of the 4 pounds of sugar that's in that, and then I'm going to cut the rinds off of 1 lemon and 1 orange and throw that in there, and then once it's been boiled for about an hour or low simmered for about an hour, I'm going to let it cool. I'm going to pour it back into this when it cools. And then when it gets down to about 98 degrees blood temperature is what the recipe says, I will juice another orange and a lemon. So I'll put the juice from both in there. And I'll mix up some of this yeast, and I'm going to spread it on 1 piece of wheat bread, and then put that into the container, and then I'm going to let that sit for like 2 days, and then we'll strain it again, and then we'll bottle it. So it could be fun. All right, so I just dumped the water out through the strainer. Whew, it's got a little funk to it. So we're gonna wash that before we put the water in that's been cooked down. So this is what it looks like once it's been strained. It's got some color to it. It's gonna get interesting. All right. All right, so I have cut the rind off of 1 orange, and I've added 3 pounds of sugar. So I'm assuming that this wine is going to be sweet. It's going to be more like a Riesling, I think, maybe. So I got to do the lemon, and then I'm going to let that cook for an hour. And then I'm going to let it cool. And then I'm going to put live yeast on a piece of wheat bread and let that sit for 2 days. And then we're going to strain it and bottle it. So, all right, time for the lemon. All right, so I cut up the lemon, and so the lemon rind's in there with the orange now. And now, it's been in there for, I added the sugar about 10 minutes ago, and it's already dissolved, so that's good. It's been incorporated into the water. Oh, you hear it? You can hear a little bit of sugar in there. Kind of get that off the bottom so it doesn't burn. We don't want to ruin it by burning sugar. So we're gonna stir this every couple minutes for an hour. It looks like onion, but it's not. It's lemon and orange. All right, so we're gonna cook that for an hour, and then we're gonna let it cool, and then we're gonna put in the yeast in the bread and let it sit. All right, so I brought it up to a boil, and then that took about 20 minutes to bring the 5 quarts of water back up to a boil. And then once it was boiling, I turned it down so it was just kind of simmering. And you could see that before I started stirring it, but you see some bubbles going in there. You just want a little simmer. And you let that go for an hour. Technically the clock starts when you turn the heat on. So the recipe says 30 to 60 minutes. So I'm gonna let it go for probably about 45, 50 minutes and then start the cool down process. I'm not gonna strain out the rind. The rind's gonna stay in there with the wheat toast that has the yeast spread on it. So we're gonna leave that all together for about 2 days. And then we're gonna strain everything out, the bread, the yeast, the rind, all of it. And then we'll bottle it, so. All right, everything's been cooked. What is that floating in there? Everything's been cooked. I'm just waiting for it to cool. We need to get to blood temperature, which is basically 98.6 degrees. And we are at just over 100. 102, 105. A few more degrees, and then we'll take the yeast that I made. We'll spread that onto some wheat bread and set it down in there and then cover it all back up. And then we're gonna let it sit for 2 days. Almost there. All right, so we got all the yeast out. We spread it all over the bread. And then we set the bread in the crock or in the plastic container. And the yeast is gonna go to work. Basically, it's gonna ferment. And it's gonna do it for about 2 days. So we're just gonna leave it alone and let it sit. And then we're gonna strain it, let it sit for 1 more day, and then we're gonna bottle it. And that's that. All right, folks, today's the day we filter and strain. Sure, we got a little bubble action. It means it's fermenting. Whee! So we put a clean, thin dish rag over the strainer into the bowl. See? So we're gonna pour that through that and then put the strained, filtered stuff back into the bowl. Look at all those bubbles. All right, science teacher, what are the bubbles? Fermentation?
Well, it should have been bubbling before. I'm not really sure why it's bubbling now.
There's some grass. All right, so it sat for an additional day, and after 2 rounds of boiling, sort of boiling, low simmer, I'm left with 3.5 quarts, which is a little over 4.4 bottles. So I have washed and dried 4 bottles, and I got a coffee filter inside of a funnel, because we got to strain it one more time, filter it one more time as we funnel it into the bottles. And I even bought special scrubby bottle brushes to get down in there and clean them out, because, you know, Amazon's not perfect and who knows what was on the inside of that bottle. So now I'm going to pour this ever so slowly into that, and then I'm going to cork it. Well, this is my second pour into the filter, and you can see it's coming through like I'm making a pot of coffee. This could take a while. I might have to revert to just using like a thin like shirt or something to filter that, maybe. But I'm trying to get out the last of any impurities, any gunk or anything like that. It looks like it's clogged up the filter. I don't know. I might try something different. Hold on. Okay, so I started filling this bottle 20 minutes ago. And I changed the filter thinking, well, you know, it's kind of thick. It's got a mead-like texture, structure to it. And it was filtering really slow, and I was getting a lot of this. And what I discovered was, after I changed the filter, I thought, oh, you know, what happens if I lift the filter so that more of the filter can allow the base dandelion wine through? And by doing that, by lifting this filter up and out of the actual funnel, the permeability of all of the filter was able to be utilized. So I was getting a steady pour, sort of, so to speak, into the bottle. And I mean, I can't do that and hold the camera at the same time. So maybe I can prop it up or something. Maybe you can, so I can show you how I did it, and you can watch it. Well, that seems to work a lot better. It's still filtering it, but maybe it's not removing as much of the impurity as the coffee filter. But we'll compare the wine at the winter solstice. All right, well, took about an hour and 45 minutes. But I got it all filtered and bottled. So we'll see what happens when it's, I don't know, fermented. When it's time to drink. See what happens in the winter.